Yes, that's the first thing. I don't have to forget that. Welcome, everybody. I will start by sharing the presentation. I think. So, in this webinar, we will tell you something more about the Psychovia project. This project started in the Netherlands. We had an initiative for that. And yeah, we work together in this project with organizations from Hungary, Italy, Croatia, and Germany. And together we will present something more about the project itself, something about the insights we gained during this project. And hopefully that's the main thing. First of all, we will introduce ourselves. I'm Marit van Buizen. I'm an employee of the Robert Koppers Foundation. This is a little organization in the Netherlands, and we offer care, mainly residential care, to persons with a visual impairment and multiple problems, in combination with multiple problems, and mostly people have a psychiatric or psychological problem next to their visual impairment. And I'm now there. I work there as a coordinator for expertise, innovation, and knowledge. And that's a function I do now for 1 year. But I work 14 years at the organizations in different functions as a behavioral scientist. And also I provided care in one of our residential care facilities, for example. And in the last 5 years, I performed a PhD study that was focused on the specific care and treatment that we are providing in our organization and how this is organized, especially for persons with a visual impairment and a serious mental illness. So that's a bit of my background. André, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course, I try my best. Hello, my name is André. I'm from Germany, from the Berufsförderungswerk Halle in Germany, a short BFW. And the BFW, first for me, I'm a psychologist and I work at the BFW since years. And now I'm the vice president of the BFW and the head of a lot of departments in our company. And the BFW is a regional and national working social service company which offers a variety of vocational rehabilitation services for visually impaired and blind persons, and cares for their reintegration into the job market. And it's a private company, public associated. It's an old company founded more than 100 years ago. And it's now one of the 4 special institutes in Germany for retraining blind and visually impaired adults, being the only one in the eastern part of Germany, with approximately 60 or 70 staff persons and 120 and 130 clients. And we have a long-term experience in counseling for visually impaired and the special concerns of getting back into the job. And we have a lot of competence in the training of blind and visually impaired and coaching them onto the job and make a vocational retraining and vocational rehabilitation. That's from my background.
Yes, thank you, André. Then Georgia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Giorgia Valenti, and I'm the responsible person for the project and promotion office of the Regional Institute for the Blind. And I also bring you the greetings from Mrs. Weber, both in a role of General Director of the Institute and President of ENVITER. We are representing here the Institute Rittmeyer, as I said, and the Institute is very active in the field of supporting people with visual impairment, also with presence of multiple disabilities. And the Institute's path has been marked by scientific and social progress during the year. We are 110 years old this year. And the changing of the needs changed also the structure of the Institute. We started as a welfare center for the blind people, and then we had a gradual transformation into an educational institution. And nowadays we support also multi-disable nucleos and occupational laboratories.
Thank you, Georgia.
You're welcome.
Janka and Emesje.
Hello, everybody. I'm Janka from Hungary, and I am here with Emesje. She is my colleague, and we are working in Budapest in the School for the Blind. And in school, we have students from preschool to young adults. And we work with the pupils, students who usually have other disabilities other than visual impairment. And we work as special needs teachers. So basically, we are teaching the main subjects to them.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Janka and Emesje. Then we have Anna and Emina.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ana Petrinic, and I'm occupational therapist in Center of Education and Rehabilitation in Quebec. Today with me is my colleague Emina Šišić-Anđelić, who is the lead of Adults Department and also work in Psychovia project. I will tell some short. The center in Quebec was founded 1895, but initiative by Mr. Wim Quebec, who was the first Tiflo pedagogue in this part of Europe. The center first started working with children, but as time has progressed, they expanded their work to psychological rehabilitation of young people and adults. Today, in Quebec is the only reference center for blind and low vision people in Croatia. We have also kindergarten, we have a school, high school, and have the adult department, and work psychosocial rehabilitation and education for children and for adults people. That's I mean it's okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
You.
So that are the presenters for today. And I will do the main presentation, and well, my colleagues will introduce some of their transnational project meeting and the most important outcomes. I was a bit curious also about our audience, so I would like to have a short introduction. I cannot ask you all to introduce yourself, but maybe you would, I will ask you to raise your hands for the first, some questions. The first question is, please raise your hands if you have experience in providing care to persons with a visual impairment and a comorbid psychological or psychiatric problem. We'll stop sharing. Oh, would you like to raise your hands if you have experience with that? I have to raise my own hand also. I'm searching how I can raise my hand. Like this.
I count about 10.
Yes, yes, very good. Thank you, Peter. So not so much, but very good that there is some experience. So you can drop your hands again. And then the next question was, who has experience with conducting or participating in an Erasmus project? Because we all, so we'll tell something about the project. Not so many hands also.
No.
Can see it here. How many do you count, Peter? Also about 10, I think. Okay.
I counted 9.
Very good. Thank you. And maybe if you want, you can also place in the, leave a message in the chat. I have to look for the presentation. What's the reason why you, visit this webinar? What would you like to learn from this webinar? So maybe you can place it in the chat if you want something to know what the expectations are. So what would you like to learn from this webinar? I don't see any messages, but feel free to say something in the chat. Also, feel free to maybe later you can take an eye on the chat. If there are any questions, please write them in the chat, and Peter will let us know if there are any questions. So,
Okay.
yes, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I will share the presentation again. So, the program for today, I will tell something about the project. Why did we start this project and how was the format of the project? And then we will also share with you the main learning points from the meetings we had and what were the most important insights. And then we will do a round again for each country organized one transnational project meeting. So each country will say something about their meeting and what did we learn from that meeting. And during the meetings, we also did case discussions. We discussed about different cases, and we developed a method for that. So we want to share that with you. And at the end, we will also do a round again about the experiences. So what did the program and the project bring us? And then we will end with some conclusions and questions. I hope it will be in time. It's but it will start. So some background about the project. The project was focused on adults and young adults with a visual impairment and a morbid psychological and psychiatric comorbidity. So it's a subject within the Robert Koppes Foundation where we have our expertise. We develop expertise on this subject. A lot of our clients have this combination of problems, and we experienced in our work that there is not much knowledge available about the care profession for this specific group of people. However, their needs really fall into the visual care, the care for persons with a visual impairment, and the psychiatric care, for example. Within psychiatric care, there's not much knowledge about how people can be helped by their visual impairment, but within our organizations, we miss knowledge about how to help them with their psychiatric needs. So as there is not much knowledge available, it's important to exchange the knowledge and experience that professionals have gained in providing care to this specific group. And in this project, we already did that in the Netherlands with different research projects, but we would like to also have this knowledge sharing on an international level. So therefore, we started this project, and yeah, we started this as an Erasmus project. And this was started in 2020 with the first meeting. And we worked together with 5 countries. They introduced them already. And each country has organized a transnational project meeting where we come together about a specific theme. And all the knowledge and experience that was shared during these meetings has been written down. And we have written this down in a book of good practices. And our ultimate goal with this project is to better assist service users, but also to gain more awareness within professionals about the special needs for this target group, and also provide them with more knowledge on how this group can best be cared for. So we organized 6 transnational project meetings. The first one was in the Netherlands. We organized it as the Robert Kops Foundation, and it had the theme Personality Disorders and Psychosis. It was in January of 2020, so it was right before the COVID pandemic. So we managed to come together and had great plans to have this meetings also in the other countries. Unfortunately, then COVID came out, and we had to expand. Yeah, we had to postpone the meetings, and we decided to have 2 online meetings in 2021. One was coordinated by Croatia, by Vinko Beck, and that was about eating disorders and addiction, and it was in June 2021. And the other was organized by Hungary, the Budapest School for the Blind. And it was about behavioral disorders in general, and that was in October 2022. And in 2021 was then. In 2022, we organized 3 meetings that were physical again. So we had the opportunity to meet each other in real life, and that was very helpful for the project, I think. The first meeting was in May, and it was about autism spectrum disorders. One in Germany about depression and anxiety. That was in September. And the last one was again in the Netherlands and was about post-traumatic stress disorders. And that was in October. So the last 2 were very close to each other. So, but that was very good. What was the format of the program? It was very much focused on exchanging knowledge and really having everyone ask their questions, share their experiences. And for each TPM, the organizing country was in the lead. So they, for example, invited an expert about the team, one that was known in their network and did know more about the team or the specific comorbid disorder, and the expert could share the latest knowledge about what was known about this specific disorder. Furthermore, each country presented also their situation in their own country and in their organization. So it was we evolved a bit, and in the last meetings we structured it by what's what's the standings in the country, what's in the organization, and what are the needs within the visual sector, for example. So each country provided some knowledge about what is their situation and what are their questions about this specific comorbid disorder. And well, one important thing about the meetings was also the case discussion. So each country put down a case on paper, written down a case which had this combination of problems, and gave some background information and also the questions they had about the case. And these cases were discussed in groups. And based on that, we could share. It was a good way to share the experience we have and to see how each country is dealing with such a combination of problems. And you could really see that there are different perspectives about it. So that was very nice. And an important aspect also were the social activities. Next to the working bits within the daily program, we went out to dinner. We had a city tour in the city, and we had a tour in the organization itself, and it was really helpful to get to know each other and having to really build a network between each other. I think that's one of the main also the main important outcomes of the project, that we really feel that we have built a network with each other. So that's the format of the different TPMs. Are there any questions already? I see something in the chat. It's mainly about, okay, see that are...
In the chat, it says that people are interested indeed in the combination of both impairments, and are especially interested in the, let's say, the consequences for daily practice. Yes,
very good. So some reasons to visit this webinar has already shared. Thank you for that. Okay, so that was the format that we did for each TPM. Another important aspect was also that we worked together with an external evaluator. That was Dominique de Nauw. And she was always also present for the project meetings, and did a very broad evaluation, I think. She asked all the participants to fill in some questionnaires about what have they gained in this, for the meeting, what knowledge did they gain, what was very helpful, what are things that were not so helpful, or do you have ideas how we could improve the meetings. And she also interviewed all the one or two participants from each country. So based on that, she always made a presentation that was discussed in the next meeting by the contact persons of each organization. And it was very helpful, I think, to see what is working, what is going well. And based on these presentations, we discussed ways to improve the meeting. And an example for that is, for example, that we experienced in the case discussion. It was very an open discussion. But then we stayed a bit by asking questions, and we didn't manage to come to a conclusion or come to advices. So we agreed to use a more strict procedure to make the case discussions, for example. But each meeting we did improvements, and that was a very helpful way to evolve in this. So something about the content of the meetings. As I already showed you in the beginning of the program, that we each meeting had their own theme. And based on that, I will share some good practice, what we agreed on at the end of the meeting, what is good practice. And I will start, so everyone will do that for their own meeting. The first meeting had 4 topics a bit. It was we discussed something about attachment, the Charles Bonnet syndrome, personality disorders, and psychosis. And for personality disorders, it was mainly a borderline personality disorder. And well, the most things that came out of this meeting is that it's very important to being aware of a person's attachment status. As we can see, if you have this combination of a visual impairment and psychological or psychiatric problems, then yeah, these people have different difficulties in attaching to others. So most people do not had the experience to have a good attachment with their caregivers, and that is also in their later life very important in how they will also yeah, in what way you can build a trusting relationship, for example, with the client. So it's important to know something about how a person grew up and what could be challenges in their attachment and how they relate to others. Also, the Charles Bonnet syndrome was presented by Peter. And that was very something what wasn't known by a lot of participants. I think it was a very thing that was important for the awareness that the Charles Bonnet syndrome is a syndrome within persons with a visual impairment, that they are blind, but they still see images and yeah, real things happening. And it could be considered as a psychosis, but it's not, yeah, they are aware that it's not real, these images. So it's like people who are missing an arm, but still feel their arm, although it's missing. It's a bit of the same effect. So it's important to be aware if people have these images and let them know that it's normal and that it's something that is known for persons with a visual impairment. For psychosis, it was very important that yeah, if you want to, if a person has a visual impairment and also a psychosis, or then it's very important to be aware of the causes of the psychosis. So why, what is also their life story, what could be triggering the psychosis. But also that treatments can be, yeah, can work, but they need to be adopted and take more time. That's something that's also for other teams also apparent, that treatments that are known within the psychiatric care mostly are not adapted for persons with a visual impairment. So they need adaptations and mainly more time to have, if you want to be treated. And at last, for the borderline personality disorder, the importance of building a trusting relationship is very important. And that also this takes more time because the person cannot see you. So they cannot see if you are a person to be trusted. They cannot see what you are doing. And if the trust is already low, then this takes a lot of time. So you need to have this time and do other activities to build this trusting relationship. So that was from the first TPM. Then we go to the second team, that was addiction and eating disorder, and Emina and Anna will take over.
Anna will take over. Yes, I take over. Okay, first I will tell something about that Croatia was like Mary said, have a first online meeting. That was a big challenge for us, and we have a big support to Netherlands. And managed to organize this very good. And after that, this is the big job for us, because this is the first project where Amina, I, and colleague working. And I will tell something about this second meeting shortly, and after that I will present you today about theme eating addiction and eating disorder. How we say, the second meeting was held online, and the main goals were to bring professional and members of the target group together to share knowledge and experience on addiction and eating disorder in people with visual impairment. For both topics, and overview of the background information has been given by experts in the field, a case discussion from every country member, discussion and general conclusion. Now I will shortly present today's theme about addiction and eating disorder. Definition by DSM, addiction and eating disorder by DSM. Addiction is a compulsive, chronic, physiological or psychological need for habit-forming substance, behavior of activity having harmful physical, physiological or social effects. Symptoms of substance use disorders fall into 4 categories: impaired control, social problem, risk use, and physical dependence. Now, eating disorders are more difficult. Our range are physiological condition characterized by several and persistent deviation related to feeding and body weight. They might start with an obsession with food, body weight, or body shape. Diagnosis who relates to eating disorders according to DSM is anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder. We have a lot of small diagnoses here, but this is the most popular. And we are not going to the middle. We are not going to the middle. In the middle, you must you have in the book practice book here. I would like to say the approach to rehabilitation is a person who has an eating disorder must be supported by the complete medical and rehabilitation team, including psychiatrics, psychologist, internist, medical, nutritionist, rehabilitation, and occupational therapist is really needed, because it's very complex diagnosis. Also, a holistic approach to client is most important for rehabilitation. And I will tell about this project, and I learned something that there is no different in the percentage of feeding disorder is sighting in blind people. The disorder is the quality represented, no different in a percentage. For lastly, I would like to say it is extremely important to create trust between the client and the professional worker, because this diagnosis for client is very hard, and this breach under the client and the professional worker is a half rehabilitation in our job. I mean, this is and my colleague is also, all the same. I mean, this is all for now.
Thank you very much, Anna. Very good. The next theme was behavioral disorders, and that was organized by our Hungarian colleagues. So I will give you the time to say something about it.
Thank you. It was also organized online. We had two main presentations. The first one was about externalizing disorders in adolescence. The presentation's main topic was about ADHD and how it affects the adult behavior. And the other presentation was about understanding the problem behavior. And we had more case discussions about these topics. The main points of the meeting, what I would like to highlight, were mentalizing, seeing yourself from the outside and the others from the inside, the human ability that allows us to judge or explain our own and other behaviors, being a mirror for the, mirroring the behavior and the feelings of the service user to make sure we understand well the situation. And for the treatment to work, it is important to strengthen the client's self-confidence and find individual motivation for them. Yeah, and also we also highlighted the importance for the client to feel accepted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emette. Very good. So the next theme was autism spectrum disorders, and that was held in Italy. And Georgia will tell something about this meeting.
Yes, thank you very much. So autism spectrum disorder is a condition in which the person has structural deficits in social interaction and communication and activity repertoire. It means the presence of restricted and selective behaviors and interests, needs to implement precise daily routines or movements or words of preferences for repetitive habits, the difficulty accepting new foods, new clothes, smells, and experiences, an hyper-focusing attention and obsessive topics. Having a combination of visual impairment and autism spectrum disorder can be experienced as a challenge. Visual cues cannot or only partially be used within the client group. Therefore, looking for other ways to present concrete and clear information is very important. In fact, autism is a complex disorder that impairs many aspects of people functioning, and in particular social, communication, and verbal development of person, motor skills, numeracy, and bad writing skills, for example. The causes related of autism are not yet sufficiently known, and however, in a number of cases, the importance of genetic factors appears evident. There is much difference between a blind person with a cognitive deficit, for example, a mental retardation, and one with a social interaction deficit, such as, for example, the autism. And regardless the biological causes of blindness, having a visual impairment along with one or more additional problems does not equally correspond to the sum of the consequences of the single pathologies taken individually. In fact, the pathological variables, such as the condition, the pathological variables condition each other and interact with each other. Since autistic people live with rigid patterns, behavior, and obsessive interests and routines, at a therapeutical level, effective treatments, generally behavioral in nature, can be used to reduce some of the secondary problems associated with autism. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Georgia. The next theme was depression and anxiety, and this was organized by our German colleagues. So, André, you would like to give you the stage.
It's my turn. Okay. Yes. Our meeting was about depression and anxiety, as you heard, and I will tell you something about the most important points of our meeting. The first point is the eye disease and its effects have an impact on the psyche, clear, but depression and anxiety also have a strong impact on visual performance. The eye disease has an impact on the psyche. You can get a depression because, or an anxiety disorder because of a visual impairment, of loss of opportunities, of loss of one of the most important senses, loss of your job, of relationship problems, and so on. But depression and anxiety also have a strong impact on your visual performance. You can have vision problems due to a drug treatment against depression and anxiety, is, for an example, like dry eyes and different kind of hormonal changes. And we need to be aware in this topic that medication affects the vision. Basically, all centrally acting drugs such as anticonvulsants, psychotropic drugs, drugs in general, cause eye movement disorders, for example, slowed saccades or excessive saccades, or paresis or convergence spasms. And people who suffer from depression or anxiety disorder have functionally lower vision in all everyday situations, such as worse results in visual field examinations, for example, slower reading, disturbed accommodation, problems in mobility in everyday life. And this was the first point, and this leads to the next point, to the second point. What was important for us, an interdisciplinary cooperation and a good diagnostics are important, and do not trust any single measurement result, take several and different ones. A good diagnostics is the most important thing because we need to know what's cause and what's effect. And this can be an important indication for focusing on the therapy or the treatment. And the reason is we do not have only one type of, let's say, a depression. There are many different ones. And so it's important to have a good diagnostics to distinguish a depression from a normal fluctuation of emotions, or to distinguish an anxiety disorder from a normal fear or normal physical arousal, for example. And to get an indication of a more genetic and physical cause, or of strain, stress, or loss, or bereavement. And different approaches are needed for the same external disorder patterns, because what means, for example, a depression in the field of a visual impairment, you have different ways, and you have to realize that you can have both independently of each other. You can have a depression and a visual impairment. You can get a depression because of a visual impairment, of loss of opportunities, loss of one of your most important senses, loss of job and relationships, and so on. And you can have a depression and a visual impairment due to a physical disease, let's say a brain damage. And you can have a depression and a visual impairment due to a permanent psychophysical stress. Stress leads to depression and also affects some eye diseases, glaucoma, diabetes, central vein occlusion in the eye, and so on. And you can have vision problems due to a drug treatment against depression, dry eye or hormonal changes, as I said before. And the same concerns the fear or an anxiety disorder. And that's what we need to figure out in our diagnostics. And for the diagnostics, and this is the third point what we figured out, it's important to know, watch out for misinterpretation of symptoms, and especially for a male depression. Everybody knows a depression. What is a depression? It's a serious mental illness, and then can occur at any age. Patients feel down, low-spirited, low interest, and are exhausted and unmotivated and lethargic, and so on. But we have difference in the male depression because there are different expressions of symptoms by men versus women with depressions. Men show atypical symptoms, fury, anger, aggression, alcohol or drug abuses, and so on. And for the fear and for the anxiety, we have to figure out how does this special mental disorder work? How does an anxiety disorder work? And we can distinguish 4 different components. Behavior that's visible for the outside, the physical reactions of our body, pulse, breathing, vision, pain, and so on, the feelings and our thoughts. And we need to clarify in which of the 4 fields the problem are. And that was the 3 main points for us in our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, André. So then we go to the last meeting. That was about post-traumatic stress disorder, and it was again in the Netherlands. And yeah, it was the last meeting. We discussed this post-traumatic stress disorder. It was very nice to see the different situations also in the different countries. For example, our Croatian colleagues told about the war and what the impact it has on the persons with even in the main population, PTSD is something that is experienced due to the war, but for a person with a visual impairment, this is even bigger. If you don't, you have a visual impairment and then have war settings, bombs going, and you don't know where they are, where is your family, where can you go, where can you flee? This, you can imagine that this is this can have a large impact. So that was also something what was introduced by the expert talk. That was done by a former colleague of our organization, Leah. She performed a study about PTSD in persons with a visual impairment. And she found in her study, by doing a literature review and also interviewing persons with a visual impairment and having traumatic experiences, that persons with a visual impairment are more likely to experience traumatic events. And other settings can also be traumatic for a person with a visual impairment. For example, going out to the street and then a traffic accident happens right before the person, for example, because they cannot see what is happening and they only hear people screaming and they don't know how to react. So this can also lead, for example, to a traumatic experience. But also they are more vulnerable for having traumatic experiences. For example, when you are more in a dependence relationship when you have a visual impairment. Even for children, there's more risk for having, for example, sexual abuse or other kinds of abuse because of this vulnerable relationship. And so you are more likely to experience traumatic events and the impact can be bigger. And we had a nice discussion about treatment of this PTSD. So it's it's very important to be aware if there are traumatic events in a person's life. And a small thing can be very traumatic for a person with a visual impairment. And if you are aware of this and you know that this is really impeding the opportunity to do the daily activities, then treatment is possible. The most used treatment now is EMDR, so eye movement synthesizing. I forgot the R, but you ask the person to go back to the traumatic event, and when the person experienced a lot of stress, then you start mainly start using the eye fluctuations to have and that helps a person to experience less stress by the traumatic event, so that the memory is not gone, but they don't experience less stress with the memory. And there are other ways to have this desensitization. So yeah, within a person with visual impairment, you cannot use the eye movements, but you can also use buzzers in the hands, for example, or use sounds. So there are other ways to do this. Yeah, mostly this is also a way you can use when persons experience complex trauma or complex problems, or also other forms like psychosis. Treatment is possible, but they need a good basic network where who can help them going through the treatment. So that's an important thing. So that was something about the content and something to share. There's a lot of information we have shared and we have experienced. I will get back to that in the end, but we cannot share that all in 1 hour. But I think the most important things that came out is the importance of this trusting relationship. Yeah, the challenge to get a good diagnostics, to see, because we cannot use the main treatments, the main things, diagnostic assessment materials that are used for persons who are sighted. So there's a challenge to have a good diagnostic, and also have more time, know something. Yeah, the importance to know what a person needs for their visual impairment and how you can adapt treatments. So that's very important.
Speaking of time, Marit, you have about 5 more minutes.
Yes. I wanted to share something about the case discussions. As I already said, we use the format for that. But if someone is interested in that, I can share it. It was based, as I say, experienced to have an open discussion. We ended up asking questions. So we used this Socratic intervention method, where we discuss questions in groups and then handed them over to the presenter, and then they had the opportunity to answer the questions, and then we get back in the groups, and we discussed advices. So we gave advices on how would you deal with the case, and then this was also handed over by the presenter of the case, and they thought about what they thought about the advices and what they already had done, or what was a good advice that they could try. So that was a very nice way to have these case discussions. So if you are interested, I can share this procedure. And it was also nice to have to experience. We did that in different groups. Sometimes the first meetings we came together by country. So each country discussed the problem with their group and then handed over questions and also handed over suggestions. And you see, and in the last meeting, we mixed the group. So there was a mixture within the countries. But we saw that if we did it per country, then different perspectives came from out that country. And in the last meeting, we experienced that the advices were more similar. So that was a nice experience. That both is, I think, good, because there was more discussion within the groups, but the advices were more similar. So that was nice to experience. So we had something about what did we experience, but I don't know if there is enough time for that. I don't know.
See, there isn't.
No.
It's about 5 o'clock, so it depends on the participants, but I think you should try to round up in just a few minutes if possible.
Yeah, maybe you can say something in the chat about the best, your experience. Maybe that's nice. So Andre, Georgia, and Emina, maybe you can say something in the chat about your experience of the project and what did it give you. Maybe that's a good way. I think, as I already said, yeah, more general, I hope you agree that we, yeah, I think really a network is built by having these case discussions. We really developed as a group, and that was very nice to see. And I think that was very a good experience in this project. So a lot of knowledge has been shared, and there's a lot of consensus about that. This is a group that should have more attention. And well, the network is built so good that we now also submitted a next project that is more prone to having good guidelines for diagnostics for persons with a visual impairment and comorbid psychiatric disorders. So this we can share in about 3 years, hopefully, if it's also accepted. And at last, I would like to take the moment to introduce our digital book of good practice, because all the knowledge we just shared, but a lot more is already is also written down in this book. It's a digital book, so it's online. Here you can see it within if you use this link. And in this book you can find background information, a description of the cases and what advices were given for these cases, and also some backgrounds. The presentations and the PowerPoints that were used during the meetings are all in the book. So it's a very rich resource book, I think. So feel free to download it and also share it within your organization. So that was the end. I don't know if there is still time for questions or other.
We can take 2 minutes for questions, of course. And in the chat, we can read that from Croatia. They're very enthusiastic. Oh, and Andre also from Germany about their participation in the project. Yeah. So any questions? Maybe Marit, if you close the presentation that we can see the other participants.
Yeah, very good.
So, are there any questions?
And also share them in the chat if you don't want to.
You can do so. Yeah. It's a good thing that the Book of Good Practices is available, so everyone who is interested can take a look in the book and see if there's anything interesting for them. Yeah. No more questions? Okay, thank you very, very much to all of the presenters. I think it's a very interesting project. And of course, since I was one of the applicants, we hope that the next project will be granted so that we will get the money to continue in the next Psychodivia project, where D stands for the diagnostics. And we hope to continue this story, so to speak. Okay. Well, thank you all very much again. We can still read in the chat all the enthusiastic reactions of the participants. Thank you very much for that. And let's close it for this afternoon, but we will keep in touch.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, leave meeting.
Thanks for leading, Peter. That was great.